Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where we just make it up as we go along, because this week we read Spiral Scratch and we will be doing the Sixth Doctor retrospective.
And Spiral Scratch was written by Gary Russell and released on August 4th, 2005.
Yes. I feel like we might have used that intro before, but I'm okay with it because it applies especially so to this book.
Right, because we were just talking about it before we started recording, but neither of us really could tell whether Gary Russell actually planned the entire plot from the beginning and didn't write it very well, or if he just made it up as he went along.
Went along. I feel like he made it up because
it doesn't make much sense.
Like, it feels like, because I just wrote a novel right now for November, but I didn't plan this one, so like every day I was like, gotta think of something for them to do. So like, while it has a logical flow, there's a lot of like he just goes from place to place to place, which is exactly what happens in this novel. So I'm like almost certain he just made it up as he was writing it.
And there's all those plot device machines near the end.
Oh, yeah, all those MacGuffins.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, so I think our plan for this is we're kind of going to use it sort of as a framing device for the retrospective. We'll kind of go over the plot and then use that as a springboard to talk about the Sixth Doctor's era overall.
But as always, we're just making it up as we go along, so
true, but
worst comes to worst, we can just talk more about the Sixth Doctor after we've talked about the book.
Well, I think it'll be a natural segue because the logical step after talking about the book will be how well did this book emulate the era for which it was supposed to be doing, which will kind of lead us straight into what the era was like and what we thought of it. So
I guess
without further ado, we should explain at least somewhat briefly the plot of the novel.
Yeah, and I don't think we should go into it too much, or at least not as much as we usually do for the TV episodes. One, because it's a book and it's longer.
Yeah.
And two, because I don't know what happened.
I thought it was way two because there's a mystifying lack of plot in this book.
I think there was more plot than English Way of Death, which is the last book we read.
That's true, but English Way of Death executed that plot.
Yeah, it did it better.
And Spiral Scratch, so it's okay, well, it starts off with this really interesting chapter one. I'll give chapter one credit for actually being intriguing.
Chapter one was okay. Chapter one is that first 15 minutes of a serial where the doctor and companion don't show up.
I think you're thinking of chapter two. Chapter one was just like, I need you to go to Planet Blank.
I need whatever, that was kind of cool.
Like that, I'll give that credit for being intriguing.
Yeah, I was like, where are they going with this? What is it setting up? Oh, they're sending, because I knew that this book had multiple doctors in it because I read the back.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, they're sending all the doctors to these different times. Like, what are they going to do with this? So that was kind of cool.
But yeah.
And chapter 2 is the first 15 minutes of the serial without the doctor. And it's in like the Middle Ages.
I believe so,
in England.
Yes.
And it's set in this country town, and these two weird kids show up and they're all green, and they're twins, I think, or brother and sister. The boy has like healing powers and the girl has like destructive powers. Yeah.
Kind of like a yin and yang thing.
Yeah.
And the boy heals one of these guys in the town. The people in the town don't matter because
they spend so much time setting up these people in the town. I mean, they're not that interesting. So Gary Russell does like a pretty bad job of trying to make you care, I guess. But then like they all just disappear or die like kind of right away. So it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, they heal one of the guys. So they're found in the cave. They heal a guy.
There's a character named Mullen.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was the jerk who placed the boulder in front of the...
I think he was. You jerk. Yeah, so they're like, we have to go back to our own world to heal ourselves, because the boy heals one of the guys in the village, but he like takes their pain on them, kind of like the Anachronauts, I think that was their name, in Shades of Grey. The audio drama.
Oh, yeah, kind of.
But there's a boulder in front, so they like run out into the woods, and that's how the chapter ends. You're like, how is this even related to anything?
Well,
although you find out later
that this is like the impetus for everything that happens. But
yeah, so now I think we get the Doctor and Mel
for a page.
Yeah, they're going to Casmus.
They're going to the library of,
I think it was Karsus, okay.
To meet Rummus, who is a Time Lord who's created this library by stealing books from across the known universes.
Yeah, we just said like a month ago you could already like populate a small village with renegade Time Lords, and here we have yet another renegade Time Lord.
Yep.
Makes you wonder how much Time Lord society must suck that so many people run away from it.
And even already, like in these first several scenes with the Doctor, I already could tell that unlike English Way of Death and Last of the Gadarene, which are our two previous books and the only Doctor Who books I've read other than this, that the Doctor in this doesn't really act like the Sixth Doctor.
No.
Because the other two books did a pretty good job of emulating the Third and Fourth Doctor.
Right.
But this book just doesn't.
And I'm not sure if that's just because it's difficult to portray the Sixth Doctor in text form, because I think a lot of it is in Colin's acting, but on the other hand, I don't know how much of it is just Gary Russell not being able to embody the Sixth Doctor in his writing.
I think it is mostly that, because before you had, the Doctor's mannerisms, I can't remember exactly what it was, but like they would put the Third and Fourth Doctor's mannerisms in the book, and here that just wasn't really present.
That's true.
But like,
you're correct.
I also kind of agree with what you're saying, because I did think while reading this, a lot of the Sixth Doctor's defining features come in Colin Baker's delivery of lines. So you kind of just have to imagine the lines that you're reading being acted by Baker. So there's that too.
Yeah, but I think also at some point it's like the lines that were being written for the Doctor were super generic.
And like,
so it was
plot
like
dumpy near the end.
At least in Lost of the Gadarene and English Way of Death, the lines sounded like they would be delivered by those doctors to some degree.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're hinging too much on that point on this.
There's so much more wrong with this book.
Exactly.
I think they mentioned the Zarbi in, maybe it wasn't in their first appearance, but
no, it was when they went to the party.
Yeah, well, we'll just point it out now that they mentioned the Zarbi like 3 or 4 times in this book.
Well, that's because he just copy-pasted that line like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, I guess.
That was my favorite.
Yeah.
My favorite part of this was when the Doctor implies / straight up says that Mel and the Doctor have met the Zarbi, and I'm like, I want to see that story.
I would have rather read that than the stupid. God, I can't even remember what they're called now.
The Lampreys?
Yeah, the Lamprey or Lamprey. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah. So,
so meanwhile, a family is getting torn apart by fire.
Yeah, okay, this is actually my biggest complaint about this book, was how haphazardly that just jumped between different stories.
Yeah, and like a lot of, not even just Doctor Who books, but a lot of like novels do that, especially ones written in like the 20th century / this century, the early 21st. Yeah. But here there were so many different time periods that weren't developed very well, and B, just like jumped back and forth really quickly without very much indication as to what's going on, because there are multiple Doctors and Mels. It got so confusing and so dumb that I just stopped caring.
Well, it's like even in other books that do that, the characters are all usually confined to either one location or one time period, so the jump is like between characters are all main characters, but this it cuts between like the Doctor, who's 2 billion years in the future, whatever, to 1953 with Sir Bertrand Lamprey, and the least it could have done was like put like a dividing line on the page to show you that it had skipped somewhere else, because sometimes what it does is it uses a pronoun to refer to someone who hasn't come up yet. So it's like we're talking about the Doctor, and then we like he sat down. Sir Bertrand Lamprey was doing something else, but the he in that sentence was referring to Sir Bertrand and not the Doctor. You
know what could have been cool that I just thought about right now is chapter 1 is this list. I need you to go to Earth in 1959. I need you to go to Janus 8 in 66.98, whatever. They could have put like little headings above the sections like Earth 1959, Nara 2721, or whatever's on here. So that would have
been nice, but instead Gary Russell decided to name the book and all the chapters after the EP by the Buzzcocks, so...
Oh, God.
I think that's the best part of this.
So I kind of also want to talk, this is semi-related, but about the writing style of this book, which was pretty bad. So it's the like tone, I guess, or style in this book is like, it's like really laid back and lighthearted and fun, which doesn't really go with the plot.
The levity of the story being told?
No, it doesn't, because like in the climax, the literal climax of the book, there's like these fun little quips in the narration. And it's like, the doctor blinked out of existence, dying. Or did he? Mel couldn't tell. And it's like, I don't know. I can't think of any exact examples.
I think the problem wasn't necessarily in that, but in the fact that it wasn't done well. Because, like, if you read something like Douglas Adams, the whole prose style is it's all very haphazard and loose cannon, but he does it well.
But that's also because the story he's writing is, like, supposed to be kind of funny and tongue-in-cheek.
A little bit absurd.
And, like, and this kind of, I didn't get the feeling that the story was supposed to be that.
Maybe it was, and we just missed the whole point, which is possible, I suppose.
I don't think this story about multiple universes getting destroyed was supposed to be fun and lighthearted, but maybe it was. I don't know.
Anyway, so the doctor goes to the library. Mel makes this whole thing about how Ramus is stealing books, and the doctor's like, no, he's a good guy, but then later in the book it turns out he's a total
jerk.
And he basically set the whole events of this book in motion. Also, they make a really big deal about the Pentagon and there being Pentagon-shaped buildings on multiple planets, and then they mention it once again. And
it was in one line, like near the end. And it's like, that's how the lamp ray is getting to other planets, but like it was also getting to other planets in a different way too. So I don't know. On page 60, where is it? Well, Mel, I don't remember exactly what context this is in, but Mel says, like, I've read a lot. And okay, so on page 60, the doctor says, how do you know all this nonsense, Mel? And she's like, I read a lot and far better books than that. And I was like, yeah, I read a lot too, and far better books than this. Because I think I've read about 50 books this year, and this
That's a lot of books.
Yeah. Well, I'm an English major,
yeah,
so.
I was gonna follow that with how many was school required.
Like 45 school required and like 5 for fun. Well,
I'm sorry that
like,
one of them was this book.
No, this is the worst book I've read this year out of like the 50 I've read. It's probably more like 40. I don't know how many it is. It's somewhere between 40 and 50.
Yeah.
Well, books as in like novels / novellas. It wasn't all like 300-page books, so.
Yeah, well, I read this on my phone, which made the experience so much better. Partially on my phone and partially on my computer.
Wait, are you kidding? Did it actually make it better? Or?
No, worse. It made it way worse. I was being completely sarcastic there.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry for just commandeering the print copy then.
Honestly, I don't think the print copy would have made it any better. So then Ramus is like, hey, go to Earth, find out what's going on at this party. So he goes to this party for Helen Lamprey.
Who's the girl whose mom died in the fire, who's Sir Bertrand's daughter.
Yes. And they go, and then the Lamprey show up and steal Helen. There's this whole hoity-toity scene, too, about cubism and pentagons, and I was like, ugh. And Mel keeps seeing... So Mel, of all people, is the...
Mel was like the main character of this book.
Which isn't bad, it's just that we haven't seen much of Mel, so...
It's not necessarily bad, I think, is what you're trying to say. It's bad, fair. But it wouldn't necessarily be bad if it was, I don't know, another book.
So she keeps seeing these other images of the Doctor. I did like how...
I like that Rome Never Fell
Yeah, the Rome Never Fell timeline.
That was cool.
I actually really liked the other timelines because they weren't all like really generic. They were all interesting and unique. Like there's the one timeline where Mel is a half human, half Silurian hybrid.
Right.
And then there's the one where Rome never fell and that Mel is like a slave. And there's the one where, that same one, the Doctor has a scar over his eye and wears a leather jacket and his companion Brown Perpigillium died. And then there's another one that's like a subtle change where the Mel has a sister.
The Mel.
Well, I said the Mel because I'm referring to the Mel for that universe.
So it still doesn't count, huh?
Not really, because that was intentional.
All right, sure.
Mel keeps seeing these other doctors and is like, "What's going on?"
By the way, just to cut in here, I do want to mention that I wrote in my notes, like in Rummus's first appearance, I wrote in before Rummus is the mastermind behind it all. Haha.
And he was. Unintentionally.
Yeah.
So Mel and the Doctor are concerned about this whole time leakage thing, so they go back to Karsus for the second of 50 times in the book.
Yeah, the other dumb thing about this book is, like, Well, here, let me just give an example of it. So the Mel and Doctor who show up and rescue Kina are the half Silurian Mel and her Doctor.
Yes.
I didn't get that until almost the end of the scene.
Yeah,
I thought it was just the regular Doctor and Mel from the TV show.
Yeah, well, the only way to differentiate it is her name is Mel Ball, but she likes to be called Melanie and not Mel.
Yeah, like, I didn't... Especially since I read this before... Well, I read this between watching Terror of the Vervoids and Ultimate Foe. Mm-hmm. So I have, like, no experience seeing Mel at all.
Not that the Ultimate Foe provided you with much more
not
experience.
That it did, but like just the fact that she's called Melanie, not Mel, that's not going to alert me to the fact that it's a different Mel.
Yeah, because there's that tiny change that like you would never pick up on.
Yeah, and the only reason I realized was that like almost near the end of the scene they mentioned her scaly green skin, and I was like, wait, what?
What?
So I looked up Mel because. At that point, I had gathered that she was half Silurian because they mentioned that she's a cross between humans and the other race, the reptilians from Earth. So I was like, okay, she's half Silurian. I thought the actual Mel from the show was half Silurian, that she could like mask it or something. So I went and looked it up, but no, apparently it's just in this book.
That would have been cool, though.
So there's that.
And in this, okay, so Scar Doctor goes to Rome Never Fell land, and it's revealed that he's had previous experience with them. And then they have slaves working in the technology shop, and the Doctor takes one away named Melina. And she's really crotchety about being taken away, but the Doctor's like, for some reason I feel like I need to take you away.
Yeah, I need to take you to whatever in the year whatever. No.
Yeah, Mel makes this comment later like, well, maybe every Doctor's destined to have a Mel.
Which seems to be the case.
Although when they all show up at the end, some of them like show up without Mels, because some of them show up...
One of them had a penguin.
Yeah, who's the... So I actually know who the penguin is. It's supposed to be this character named Frobisher, who was introduced in the comics, and is a
I think I know about this.
He's a shape-shifting alien who just likes to be a penguin.
Yeah, I think I've heard about this.
He shows up in the audio dramas a couple times. And then
gotta read another Frobisher thing.
They show up. Some of them show up in the blue coat, which is like a extra canon, I guess, like outside of the TV show costume for the Doctor, and with an old lady who I think is supposed to be implied to be Evelyn Smythe, who's an audio drama companion.
Huh. Oh, that's the woman in her mid-50s.
Yeah.
I guess. I thought it was Barbara, maybe, but no, guess not.
No, yeah, the Sixth Doctor I think travels with this mid-50s history professor named
Barbara.
Evelyn Smythe.
That is just Barbara, except she's a professor, not a teacher.
Evelyn Smythe, I think, in the audio dramas is like responsible for softening the Sixth Doctor up.
That's another thing about this book is I thought since this was supposed to be the the final story for the Sixth Doctor, that they were going to go into more detail about, or not more detail, but they were going to go into that plot thread that they dropped in the TV show where the Sixth Doctor learns to be not so much of a jerk face, but I guess that didn't happen.
Thank God for the audio dramas, I guess.
Yeah, thank God for the fact that they retconned this last year, / this wasn't even ever canon, so I don't know.
I mean, you could consider it canon. I consider everything to be canon. But yeah, so
we didn't mention Joseph Tungard and Nadia and them. God. So Joseph is what was he? Was he Ukraine? No,
Ukraine.
Romanian?
Sorry, Romanian.
Oh God!
It was one of those Eastern European former USSR countries.
I feel like we should know, but I guess not.
One of those former Soviet blocs.
So yeah, he and his wife Nadia, who has tuberculosis, have to flee to England, and they befriend Professor or Dr. Pike and his granddaughter Monica.
Monica Lamprey, you find out later.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's revealed the Lampreys are these creatures who exist like outside of time?
Or like they exist everywhere and when all at once.
This is like really poorly explained, but apparently like timelines and everything are like a spiral, and the spaces between the spirals are where the
scratch. I don't know.
Well, it's like the the scratch appears when it like the timelines start to crack and bleed into each other, and that was the scratch.
Right. Kina, the little girl who the Doctor and Melanie go to rescue, explains all of this because her father is like channeling himself into her. And before this, we'd gotten all these scenes of like different time sensitives getting taken out of their own timelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they were gonna like be major players, but not really.
That was a mistake.
So basically, all you need to know at this point, and really at any point, unless you want to wade through all the incomprehensible crap near the end, is that the lampreys are doing some pretty bad stuff to space and time.
Although then later it implies that there's only one lamprey and it's all Monica and just splinters of Monica all along, except for Sir Bertrand.
She was the last one, and she
besides Sir Bertrand
and her brother who got killed. Because I guess we'll just explain it now that the two kids from the beginning of the books were lamprey.
Yeah, it was actually kind of a satisfying payoff when everything came together, though it was executed so poorly, kind of undermined any satisfaction I got out of it. I mean, everything came together, and I was like, oh, everything's connected, like Dirk Gently. But it was I
don't like that book, just want to mention that.
Oh, I'm referring to the TV show.
Oh, okay.
It's on BBC America right now. It's actually really good.
Oh, what? They made a show of it?
Yeah, except it's not really an adaptation of the book. It kind of takes Dirk Gently, and it's implied to be set post the novels. Oh. And it's a unique story that's actually really funny.
Well, okay. I mean, I read the first one. I didn't like it, so.
I haven't read it. The TV show is funny, though.
Wait, what were you saying? Oh, like where everything all comes together. Yeah, there actually was some payoff at the end, and there were some actually kind of cool concepts in this book overall, but like...
I actually really, really liked the concept of this book.
Yeah, but it's just the execution that...
Yeah, it's the execution that really lets it down.
Yeah. So there's all this stuff where you're like, wow, it's really cool, but then it's surrounded by all this other stuff that you don't want to read at all, so... Yeah.
Well, I mean, so the lampreys fight. Sir Bertrand gets captured by Ramus because he thinks he's got Monica, but he hasn't. He's got Sir Bertrand.
Yeah, because Bertrand was a lamprey, and he was like a good lamprey, and he was pursuing Monica and her brother.
Yeah.
And trying to stop them from messing up space and time, but he failed and like suppressed his own memories intentionally.
Because he found love. He said he suppressed his memories because he fell in love with an Earth woman. And that's why Monica wants Helen, is because she's like a hybrid between a lamprey and a human.
Yeah, because apparently the lamprey can't sustain themselves like outside of the vortex for very long or some crap like that.
Yeah, like time flow.
There's also this subplot about how Joseph Tungard was cheating on his wife with Monica.
Well, because they also introduced this complete nonsense that Joseph had invented this chemical that opened a portal.
Yeah, that was so stupid. It's just like, why?
And Monica needed the portal to be able to create the pocket.
Something.
She created... Okay, it was like she created... Okay.
It gets so confusing. And
this was my understanding of it. All right, here we go. You better brace yourself, because this is some pretty convoluted that you're going to get here. So, Monica needs the chemicals to create a pocket universe. And in the pocket universe, she uses the supposed to be 4 time sensitives. And she was going to use them to like...
She's going to use her chronon energy, right?
Yeah, because apparently the lampreys need a time sensitive to access a world, because they access it through the time sensitive. So they're going to feed the time sensitives into
I forgot about
the multiple copies of Helen, because infinite universe is infinite Helens type thing. Though there weren't infinite Helens. I think they said there were 5 Helens on the 5 planets that had the pentagon-shaped buildings the only time they came into play.
It was like, I thought it was 1 Helen for every 5 planets or something. Like that, I don't know.
It was definitely a finite number of them, though, because it was that... Because Ramus sent the doctors to find the Helens, and the Scar Doctor with Melina didn't find a Helen in his timeline.
Yeah.
So Ramus was like, so that's why the plan hasn't worked yet, is because there was no Helen in that timeline. So her plan was to use the Helens to, like, seal off the universes into, like, a time bubble and then feed off the time energy. And she wanted to seal off, like, all infinite million timelines, which is why she needed so much chronon energy to be fed through Helen.
Well, all right. I'm not really going to comment or try to refute any of that or agree with it, because I really had no idea what was going on. So, also, Monica's, like, motivation is just greed.
Yes.
So that kind of sucked. I mean, I guess there was the thing about them killing her brother and, like, being not cool with them. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
The whole finding the green children, for some reason, it just made me think of Warcraft. At the end of the movie, the lady floats her green orc baby down the river, and like the plot later of the Warcraft books is that someone finds the green baby and raises them. Finds the orc, like a human finds the orc and raises them.
Okay.
But anyway, so the doctors stop it so they send the Mels into the pocket universe to get the time
to
sense
do something. There's all these devices that they use for something.
Gary Russell really went like overboard on the techno babble in the final like 4 chapters of the book.
Yeah. That was one of the biggest indications to me. Obviously, I don't know for sure either way, but the ending chapters were some of the biggest hints to me that he kind of just made it all up as he went along. He's like, oh shoot, wrote myself into a corner. I guess I gotta devise these plot devices, I guess.
Well, there was also the laziest chapter I've ever read in existence. Yeah. Chapter 10, which is a precise copy-paste job of the earlier party scene, except he went Control F, Mel, the Doctor.
And don't forget the butler dude, Chakis, or whatever his name was.
He replaced Sir Bertrand with Chaswick or whatever.
Oh, that was supposed to be a replacement for Sir Bertrand? See, I didn't even get that because of how obtusely it was written.
He said all of Sir Bertrand's lines, so that's what I assumed.
Yeah. Well, I didn't remember. I read this over the course of like 3 weeks, which might have been the worst mistake I read this over
like 3 days.
Oh, so I guess it doesn't matter then. So they need to. There's a bunch of doctors now. They've all popped into existence, and there's a stuff about Mel, her sister died, and I don't know.
I didn't get why they introduced that plot point. I think it would have been more interesting if this Mel had just never had a sister. Because they keep building it up like that's what it was going to be, that this Mel had never had a sister, and that's why she was unique compared to all the other Mels, because all the other ones had sisters. But then they reveal that she did have a sister, but she killed her.
Yeah, when she was 18 months old. By, I guess, accidentally pushing her off the stairs.
Yeah.
That's what I got from it.
The best part was when Gary Russell realized, because this is never brought up in a future Mel story, he then retcons it out by saying that Mel blocks the memory out like she had before.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get why this was in, really. It didn't really seem to have anything to do with anything.
No. I honestly thought it was going to be that she didn't have a sister, and that was why she was special, why she was quote-unquote the prime Mel.
Yeah.
But then, I don't know.
Because I guess the book implies that the Doctor and Mel and the universe from the show is the universe prime, like the actual real universe, and everything else is just a what-if / diverged timeline.
Well, I mean, I guess on the bright side, the fact that she does have a sister but killed her, you could just say that this book is the regeneration of an alternate timeline, Sixth Doctor, and that this just demonstrates...
Oh, yeah, I guess.
a possible alternate timeline.
Yeah, I guess you can do that. So, they somehow defeat the lamprey. There's a bunch of doctors.
Their intention is to overfeed it. There was also the Evelyn Smythe with the cyborg arm. That was sick.
There's this stupid line, like the lamprey's like, you'll never win, Doctor, and the Doctor's like, yes, I will, and she's like, why? And he's like, because I'm the Doctor.
Oh yeah, that was so dumb. I was like, really? And then he like leaps onto her and drags her into the spiral chamber, and then they defeat her, and then he regenerates. And the regeneration itself was kind of sad, because Mel was like, no, you can't, like... The Doctor will always get up and like save the day when someone's wrong, and he's not getting up right now because we just got an attractor beam and he's on the ground and he's dying.
Yeah, and I assume this leads into Time in the Ronnie, although I don't know because we haven't watched it yet.
Well, I do know that line right at the end, leave the girl with the Doctor I want, that's said by the Ronnie in Time in the Ronnie.
Okay. So yeah, I guess it does.
I mean, like I said, the regeneration itself...
We didn't mention how Rummus was actually the mastermind behind it all, because I really don't know what happened, but he did some convoluted time nonsense.
Something with the spiral chamber.
He was trying to kill the lamprey, but...
He stole the spiral chamber and was using it to steal books or something, and then he accidentally let the lamprey free, and then he was trying to capture it, and then he got out of his control.
He devises this plan that involves like multiple timelines / millions of years to like trap and kill the or not kill, but just trap the lamprey, and like completely backfires for multiple reasons that are poorly explained.
there was this interesting line that was immediately thrown away 20 seconds later, where 20 seconds was the serial, where they're like, oh yeah, time here in the library always moves in a linear pattern. Everywhere else it may not be linear, but here in the library it's always linear. And I was like, I think that'll come into play, but it didn't.
Yeah, don't they actually, like, refute that later?
Yes.
I think? I don't know. Anyway, there are a couple of lines that I found funny in this book. On 152, page 152, if you have a copy of the book, I guess you can find it. They mention Stephen King, and that there's a bunch of references in this book to what's that show called? Faulty Towers.
I believe it's to Faulty Towers.
Faulty Towers, yeah.
Because the Doctor makes a reference to John and Connie, which I'm pretty certain is a reference to John Cleese and Connie Booth, who were married at the time.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of references like that, too. So there's this reference to Stephen King, and there's a Stephen King book that's basically, it's part of this book is, like, taken, I guess, from that, where it's, like, a bunch of people get trapped outside of time, and they have to wait for time to catch up to them, and there's, like, these creatures that eat time. I think it's a Stephen King book.
Interesting. I mean, Stephen King's written so many books. Probably is.
It's like, name a book is probably written by Stephen King.
Either Stephen King or James Patterson, who apparently cranks out like 6 books a year.
Jesus.
I think it's like he mostly uses ghostwriters and just slaps his name on it because his name is a brand at this point.
Honestly, the only Stephen King book I've read is On Writing, which is like his autobiography / tips about writing. And like his tips about writing are, in my opinion, kind of condescending.
I've not read a Stephen King book to my knowledge.
You probably watched a Stephen King movie because there's
watched a Stephen King TV show. I watched like most of a season of Under the Dome. Not by choice, by the way. It got shown to us in class because we had nothing to do. That show was terrible. I hated that.
Was this by who I think it was in high school?
It might be. I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay. Anyway, on 266, who says this? Rummus says, like, you don't get it. This isn't some nonsensical danger like the Daleks or the Cybermen. I was like, this is a more nonsensical danger than anything ever.
That line is like the worse, more neglected version of the line the Doctor said in Ultimate Foe about the Daleks and the Cybermen and the Time Lords.
Oh, yeah. It's a poor man's ultimate foe. And then there was what's-his-face named Hemp. Keena's dad named Hemp. All right.
Anyway, overall, this book's pretty bad, although it had really good concepts.
Really did. The other thing about the writing that I wanted to mention is just how terrible it was in the way that a lot of like really bad fantasy / science fiction writers do, like, hey, want to go to the forest? Like, just imagine in a generic fantasy book. Hey, want to go to the forest outside of town? Oh, you mean the forest that we both know about that's been there for as long as we can remember? And there's a really good example of it on page 134. Hold on, let me find it. Oh, yeah. So Tungard is talking to Monica about their affair. He goes, I'm sorry, Monica, but when we began this, it was on the knowledge that my Nadia would die and never find out. 3 years on, it's becoming a bigger and bigger risk. I won't hurt her. And there's so much more like that, too.
I remember that line because later on they're like, oh yeah, Monica was keeping Nadia alive. She just didn't know it. And I'm like, what?
And like Nadia knew all along too. And like I don't know, I felt like there are a lot of misogynist undertones in this book, although maybe it's just me. But then the thing is, at the end also, they try and play it off like, oh, Tungard really wasn't such a bad guy, but like he kind of was. Like a lot of this was his fault. / also just cheating on his wife casually.
There's another bizarre plot point in the book that confused me because so they go in the library system and has like every version of every person ever created has a biography of them. So they look up Tungard and it refers to him as the architect of chaos because he releases the lampreys, which implies that biography was written after the events of this novel, which means they should know that they're going to succeed? ? I
don't know. Don't even try and make sense of it. Don't even try.
Jeez. The thing is, I was thinking about this today because I finished this book today. I was thinking about it, like the scope of this regeneration story, the whole multiple timelines and multiple doctors are needed to stop this threat is like pretty much perfect for the Sixth Doctor as a character, because the Sixth Doctor is so boisterous and full of himself that like he would need a story that big to like
contain his ego.
Pretty like, I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. And I think it's kind of a pity that it was like put out there in such a poor way. Because I was really excited. I was like, oh, multiple timelines could be really interesting. We'll see lots of multiple versions of the Doctor. But then it was.
But then we got
it was confusing as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from the book is like if it was written in a better way, it would have been cool.
Yeah. And I guess that segues into like the Sixth Doctor's era as a whole. Is that I mean,
or like how much does this feel like a Sixth Doctor serial? Not at all.
No, but I think it would have worked as a regeneration story. I feel like if they had executed another season of the show, I could see them building up to something like this over the course of a season. If they like intersperse small little snippets, but if they did a season long arc where they put in, you know, a couple glitches in the timeline where Mel sees two doctors or whatever, and they slowly increase it throughout the season,
it cool.
It builds up to like the finale where they reveal what happened.
Yeah, I mean, they could have even implemented the lamprey or something like them and like cut out a lot of the nonsense in the book, which they would have had to do anyway for a 4-episode serial.
Yeah. I mean,
that could have been cool.
And at the same time, the Sixth Doctor's era too doesn't really have a consistent tone because both seasons are so drastically different from each other. I mean, not drastically, maybe that's the wrong word. Just different from each other, because the one is like this overarching trial of a Time Lord, and the other one is the Sixth Doctor and Perry.
Yeah.
Trying not to die, and the Sixth Doctor being an egotistical maniac as usual.
And the production team and Colin Baker trying to get their footing with the Sixth Doctor.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is a good time to talk about, or a good transition into talking about the era as a whole. But it's like he just didn't have enough time, really. Like the first season, like they're trying to get their footing with the Sixth Doctor, and then you got Trial of the Time Lord, and like I wish there was more Sixth Doctor.
I agree. I think he gets a bad rap because I think he gets a bad rap because of the first season where they were trying to find their footing, and like we mentioned multiple times, none of the writers were able to portray his kind of over-the-top ego-ishness to the same degree, and some weeks it was manageable and a cool character, and some weeks it was like, you're making me hate you now.
Well, some weeks it was like a flaw that he's hopefully, although this doesn't happen, gonna overcome later. Other times it's just like, stop, Doctor, stop.
And it's like, I said this in Terror of the Vervoids, the glimpse of the future Doctor we get, which I assume is what they were aiming for with the character arc, I thought was really cool, and I thought would like be a really compelling character to watch, but we never get there, and I'm kind of sad we didn't get there. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Just
on the other hand, though, I feel like in some ways it might be better that they left it there and then like didn't give him a definitive on-screen regeneration, because it left it open. Because I feel like the way the production was going, they weren't really going to give Colin Baker a chance if they had done another season with him.
Well, I mean, the state the show is in the mid to late 80s, like indicates that they're just going to put out suckishness on some level. Yeah,
and I feel like it's better that they, take it with a clean slate at this point. Eric Saywood, not really on board with the Sixth Doctor, so he quits.
Robert Holmes kicks the bucket.
Unfortunately, J&T is like kind of done with the show, and I think that if they'd done another season of the Sixth Doctor, it would have been kind of all over the place and possibly terrible.
Maybe.
Possibly even more terrible than what we got is what I'm saying.
I mean, maybe, and I guess, they left it open for the modern audio dramas, which are books. Supposedly pretty good, and books, which are
of varying quality.
You would hope to be good, but
we'll call it mixed. We'll call it mixed.
Yeah.
I think, which season do you think is better? I'm leaning actually towards Trial of a Time Lord, which might be like an unpopular opinion.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mentioned it last week, of course, but Ultimate Foe is my favorite Sixth Doctor serial.
Well, I think also, like we said, the Sixth Doctor just figures out kind of what he's doing in the Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's at least more consistent than season 22.
Sure.
I didn't like Mind Warp at all, really.
No, Mind Warp was terrible. In fact, in my opinion, Mind Warp is the worst of the Sixth Doctor.
Well, if we're counting Spiral Scratch is the worst of the Sixth Doctor.
I mean, we can if you want, because I'll agree with you on that front.
But if we're not, then I'm going to have to say Vengeance on Varos, which I know you really liked.
It's okay, though. We at least agree on which writer was clearly the most subpar of the Sixth Doctor, considering he wrote both of those serials.
Yeah. I honestly don't know which season of the Sixth Doctor I liked more. And I think I'm just going to keep it open. I don't think I can say.
Yeah, that's fair. Although I do have a favorite serial, which is the Two Doctors, as I've mentioned before. I do say Ultimate Foe, I think, is decent. Yeah. Those are kind of the only two that I'd like. If I ever had to rewatch them, I would by choice. Maybe Mysterious Planet. Maybe.
I wouldn't rewatch Mysterious Planet.
Although I'd probably take Terror of the Vervoids over Mysterious Planet.
So companions? Well, we have two, Perry and Mel.
We have Perry and Mel, both of whom bleed into other Doctors.
Right. Well, Perry not so much.
Yeah, I definitely like Mel more than Perry, and we've only seen Mel for 2 serials in a book.
Yeah. I mentioned before how I didn't really know about Mel that much, because in this book, and we had to read stuff about Melanie, but I think I already know more about, or Mel is already like a better defined character than Perry after her 2 serials. Yeah, and just a better character in the fact that Perry is just...
Well, the interesting thing about Mel, because she's apparently a computer programmer.
Yeah. With a photographic memory and also a bunch of other cool stuff.
Which, you could consider like really over the top, but then you have to consider also that Zoe was kind of the same thing. She had like a really good memory and was almost smarter than the Second Doctor, so it'll be interesting to see if they execute Mel as well as Zoe, although I just realized that has a connotation. I didn't intend it to.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I didn't intend for them to execute Mel.
Well, Zoe doesn't die.
She does get her mind erased,
Yeah, she doesn't die.
As far as we know.
I guess. Perry doesn't die, unfortunately. They bring her back.
They just couldn't adjure her, I guess.
They just couldn't give... They just couldn't give Perry's character even one shred of anything good about it.
Oh, she had a good accent by the end.
Yeah, she did. And I know Nicola Bryant kind of hated the Perry character by the end of the Perry character.
Well,
so makes sense.
I don't blame her as much for the portrayal as I do the writing stuff.
No, I don't. If I were in her shoes, I'd be like, oh, you're going to write this character this way? Well, haha, I'm just not going to go along with it, which she actually does. Until that final... She
tries to.
Even until that final scene where I think she's being all smug and like, haha, I'm not going to act. Which is all right, I guess, because it's only a 5-second clip.
Yeah. Companions, favorite story we've done that. Well, that's kind of everything, I guess. I'm curious to know what they're going to do with Mel heading forward with the 7th Doctor, who is supposedly darker than any Doctor beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see where they go. They get a new script editor, Andrew Cartmel. And then the show ends. And then we'll be exploring some things there. And I guess now is the time for quotes.
Once again, I have none.
Well, I actually kept quotes for the entire era this time. And not just the final 3 stories like I did for the 5th Doctor.
All right.
So... I'll use these to, I guess, kind of conclude our discussion on the 6th Doctor, unless you have anything else you want to say besides
not really, no.
I think we've kind of covered all the main points that, we wanted to cover anyway. All right, so my first quote comes from Vengeance on Varos. It's kind of interesting. I just noticed my quotes are bookended by Vengeance and Mind Warp. Vengeance on Varos, so Six is all, don't give up hope, not yet, and Perry's all, yes, Doctor. But it's the way she delivers it that I thought was funny, because she says it really dejectedly. She's like, yes, Doctor. I actually have two quotes from there, because I have, Perry goes, it's crazy, it's cruel, and the Governor goes, it's Varos.
It was like an ad. Come, it's crazy, it's cool, it's Varos. Visit Varos this summer.
And then I have Mark of the Rani. You have an extraordinary
penchant
for seeking
danger. I don't know how I knew that. I'm not even looking at the page.
And and then I also have when the Rani's talking to the monster with a mind-controlling worm. She's like, "Try one," and he's like, "Thank you, I won't." Which I think I mentioned some of these in their episodes. Two Doctors. What's the use of a good quotation if you can't change it?
Yeah, I like that one. That one's good.
Second Doctor.
If I were to have written down any quotes, that one would be on my list.
Also, in the same serial, the Second Doctor, do you expect me to cooperate in my own murder? Man, Robert Holmes has some zingers.
Okay.
Revelation of the Daleks. Jobel, it would take a mountain to crush an ego like yours, which we mentioned already. Mysterious planet. The Doctor says everything in life has a purpose.
Boo. Okay, I don't like that
Boo.
one.
That's the most generic quote you could have.
I know, that's why I don't like it.
I don't even know why I wrote it down, now that I think about it. And then in Mind Warp...
It's kind of religious, actually.
Yeah, a little bit. And then Mind Warp, I guess...
Not that I'm implying that's bad. Not that I'm trying to imply that's bad, if that's what it sounded like.
And Perry in Mind Warp Destiny, isn't that just another word for blind chance?
No, Perry, everything in life has a purpose.
That's actually true. Yeah, exactly. Now you're getting it.
Get it right, Perry. Okay.
So yeah, those are my fun, not all fun quotes for the Sixth Doctor's era. Stay tuned for quotes from the Seventh Doctor's era, coming soon to a store near you.
To an episode near you? We're almost done.
Yeah. We have a 3-year special is actually coming out pretty soon after this goes out. It's interesting to think about that because we're recording this straight up a month in advance.
Right. 3 years of this. 3 GD years.
It's been fun, though.
It has been fun, yeah.
And we've probably got a good solid another 3 years to go.
I know we mentioned this at some point, but... we're drawing pretty close to the reboot, and once we do get to the reboot, we're going to slow down exponentially, because we're still going to... Once we get to the reboot, we're going to continue watching one story per week, which is usually like one episode or two per week.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting, and then when we catch up, we'll decide what to do then. You can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Sixth Doctor, or if you've read Spiral Scratch, your thoughts on that. You can find us on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play, all at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to check out Triple Play's Kung Fu Panda episode will have gone out by now.
Yeah.
And leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor, like us on Facebook, also check us out on Twitter at TOID Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next week we start the Seventh Doctor with Time in the Ronnie. But until then, the end.